Well, we've been covering the MAHA battle over those in the MAHA movement who are mostly concerned about vaccines, when RFK Jr.'s focus lately seems to be more on food. Many are saying, yeah, but the food is actually extremely important and maybe even a bigger issue than vaccines. So today, let's focus on the food. What is the administration doing to clean up our food? What do current contaminants, if you will, like synthetic food dyes, trans fats, high fructose corn syrup, what is the problem with them? And would things change very much if we got rid of them, as the administration is trying to do? Joining us is someone very much involved in the MAHA movement, Dr. Lynn Lafferty. She is a doctor of pharmacy, a naturopathic doctor, a master herbalist, and a chef. She teaches courses on how food and herbs can heal us from the inside. We're also going to dive into how the current medical system today was developed by the Rockefellers and was never meant to bring us good health. She's going to dive into the history of that. Dr. Lynn Lafferty, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I really enjoy your program. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's talk about what MAHA is doing when it comes to food. Food dyes, packaged foods. Tell us, right now what Kennedy had said yesterday in the hearings was, hey, you've been trying to get rid of food dyes for 20 years. I got it done in 100 days. Give me some credit. He said that to a Democratic congresswoman, and she says, all right, I'll give you some credit. And it turns out that some of these synthetic petroleum-based food dyes are going to be banned or at least phased out. I'm not sure if it's banned or exactly how they're phasing it out, but basically food companies are going to be pretty much incentivized to phase them out by the end of next year, like about a year and a half. What do these food dyes do to us that made them so dangerous?
Well, basically the body was not made for any type of chemical. So you have to detoxify that. And the more detoxification that has to take place, the more load, what we call a toxic load. So for children, what they saw in particular is ADHD symptoms. And I see a lot of that because I naturally treat that in my office here. Plus the fact that high sugar that's in a cereal like Fruit Loops that had some of these dyes in it, the chemical you need in the brain is norepinephrine, and dopamine hits your attention center in the brain. And that starts out with protein. And when I ask children, they're on all this sugar, macaroni, cereal without milk. When I went and got two of the patients, they were eating cookies and candy out in the waiting room their mother had given them. So they were very hyperactive.
And so you think the food dyes contribute to, is it the food dye itself that contributes to ADHD, or is it the food dye is like highlighting sugary foods?
Well, because also whenever things that stimulate what we call glutamate or glutamic acid in the brain, that hyperactivates your brain. So you've got chemicals in there that they're called excitatory, that makes the brain, the more you have amped up, if you will. And then you have the GABA receptors in the brain that calms the brain down. So that, and also when you have too much of a toxic load, or any toxin, actually, you can have chemical sensitivity to, then you have inflammation. And inflammation to the brain causes a lot of problems for kids. So there's so many things to look at when you put any type of toxic chemical in your body.
Okay. What are the other things that MAHA's attacking when it comes to food?
Well, high fructose corn syrup and trans fat. So the trans fat, that was in the New England Journal of Medicine back in 2002, saying that it was responsible for an extra 100,000 heart attacks at that time in the United States, because the insulin, and by the way, I never saw anyone under 60 years old that had type 2 diabetes when I got out of school. No kid had it. There weren't obese kids in school. So what has happened, they replaced regular fats with trans fat. And trans, I don't know if you took organic chemistry, there's cis and trans. The trans fat actually doesn't fit right in the receptor. It's kind of a crooked fat versus a straight fat. So they don't fit correctly into the cell membrane, which is made out of fat. So now the insulin and the sugar sit out in the blood, causing high blood sugar. high blood sugar now in turn causes all sorts of inflammation, especially inside your blood vessels. So when they start getting damaged and inflamed, now cholesterol comes in and tries to patch it up, and also uh, calcium. So those things are very important, and they're good for you when it first happens. It's just that when you chronically do this and they start building up in the blood vessels, now they block your blood vessels and they cause heart attack. Whenever you don't have oxygen and blood going to the heart from a blocked vessel or one that may burst, now you've got damage. I've seen it. It's like scar tissue that you get on your heart, and the heart stops working as well. So that's basically how the trans fat have really destroyed. I think they're the number one cause, really, of diabetes. So
Really? Trans fats. So not the high fructose corn syrup, not all the sugary stuff.
Well,
you think it's trans
there's
fats?
probably more studies on, I was going to say, on high fructose corn syrup than trans fat. There's probably 1,000 studies that talk about the, and the problem is they guise it under fructose. So those studies they're harder to find. If you put high fructose corn syrup in the medical library, you find a few, but once you put fructose in and then you read it, you see they're talking about high fructose corn syrup. I don't know if you remember, this was probably 15 years ago, they had this big campaign, high fructose corn syrup is fructose, and they ate an apple. It's nothing like it. It starts out as glucose. They add a bunch of chemicals. A third of it was found to have mercury in it. So there's all sorts of problems with high fructose corn syrup as well.
Okay, so let's kind of look at this from a real world example. Fast food. So we all like burgers and fries. It's a very American thing. I saw the other day that In-N-Out Burger announced that they're actually phasing out their ketchup. They're changing their ketchup to Heinz Simply Ketchup, which is made with real sugar rather than high fructose corn syrup. And then a lot of people in the comments were saying, okay, great, now switch to beef tallow for frying your fries. Like switch over to that as well. So let's just say the fast food restaurants. I mean, Americans aren't going to give up fast food. Realistically, we're going to continue eating our burgers and fries. We like the burgers and fries. Some people, of course, eat them way too much. But so let's say the fast food industry makes these shifts and they get rid of trans fats when they're frying the fries, and they get rid of high fructose corn syrup in all of their sugary beverages and the ketchups and things. Will that make, do you think, even if people consumed, so people that eat fast food all the time, if the fast food changed to no longer include the trans fats and the high fructose corn syrup, would it make a difference?
Oh, I think definitely it would make a huge difference. I have to tell my students, when I was young, I'm 66 now, so I was born in 1959. I'm not ashamed to tell my age, because I think it's so relevant. You get to see all these things in action, right? We had cookies. My grandmother loved making cookies, and we had Coke once a week, and that Coca-Cola had cane sugar in it and real spices. I mean, Coke started out, it was invented by a pharmacist, and even when I got out of school, we used to have Coca-Cola syrup in the pharmacy that people would prescribe for the stomach, because it actually started out being a bunch of herbs in there with sugar cane. So all of those things are very healthy, real sugar cane, because sugar cane has around it what is blackstrap molasses. So that's how they make the white sugar. They take the dark part off the sugar. Blackstrap molasses is the highest nutrient dense food in the world. So you get a lot of, when you get your minerals, that helps the sugar also go into the cell where it's needed instead of staying outside of the cell. So if you can make those changes, and by the way, my foster son after school wanted to stop at Steak and Shake, and they are even selling, they cook in beef, organic beef tallow, grass-fed beef, and they even sell it if you want at the window. So I had to get some French fries myself, and they were very delicious. But that's what they were made of when I was a kid, But we didn't have McDonald's and fast food also on every corner. that was a treat for us near where we went shopping.
Yeah.
I lived out in the country, so we didn't have one. It was diners with fresh made food from mostly a lot. We lived around a lot of cattle and dairy farms, so mostly made out of the food from near where I lived.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm wondering is, is it, because we've had this discussion, ever since diabetes and obesity epidemic here in the United States, there's always eat less fast food, eat less fast food. And of course, I think people should eat less fast food, but I wonder, if the fast food changed, how much of a difference it would make in the health of people, even if they continued to consume an enormous amount of fast food, which of course would still make them unhealthy. So they wouldn't be healthy suddenly if we got rid of the trans fats and the high fructose corn syrup. But I just wonder what sort of impact it would actually have.
Blame the fast food because they're all getting the food from the same place. Even 5-star restaurants, are probably using some trans fat, maybe some high fructose corn syrup. So it's all over the place. It's not just fast food.
Right, it's all over the rest of our food, right? It's like in our breads, in all of the sauces, the salad dressings. I mean, anything and everything we consume, it seems to be everywhere. Do you think the administration, what could the administration do you think, to change the tide on high fructose corn syrup and trans fats?
Well, if I had a magic wand, it would be to get rid of all of them. So I don't know exactly what they're planning. He seems to be doing, to me, a great job of getting the buy-in, politely, if you will, from the manufacturers. And I love what he said yesterday in Congress. There's not Democratic children or Republican children. There's children, and there's not one of you in this room who shouldn't be worried. So he does a great job. Yeah.
Let's talk about the food pyramid, because that's shifting, potentially, interestingly. What do you think it's going to look like when they come out with the new food pyramid?
Well, I think it's going to be, eat whole foods. I think it's going to be, there's nothing wrong with hamburger, but see if you can get grass-fed hamburger, which actually has more omega-3 fatty acids that are good for your brain than fish does. So, it's the way animals are raised that's the problem. So you have omega-6 fatty acid and omega-3 fatty acid, and there's a great book that was put out by a professor from MIT, Barry Sears, called Toxic Fat. And he talked about, because you're supposed to have 2-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 or 1-to-1, ours is now 24-to-1. You see everything in this country made from soy and from corn oil. So what happens, that goes down if you don't have certain minerals, or if there's too much of it, it goes down a very inflammatory pathway again, which causes things like leukotrienes, which are the reasons people can't breathe when they have asthma, or causes what we call prostaglandin 2, which are very inflammatory markers in the body that cause stroke, heart attacks, and cancer. So all of those types of things will be recommended to be removed. It's not about the food as much as it is how was it grown? Where was it grown? Because the plants will pick up what is, the soil. My grandmother was an organic farmer. We didn't call it organic back then, but she was, and she had 150 acres. And she had what I would call a small garden. When I look at it now, she got 200 cans of tomatoes out of it, and probably 200 of pickles. And she canned everything. So it was pretty amazing what even a little patch of land, when it's properly grown with the proper soil, the nutrients in the soil. So the soil to a farmer is, you've heard of the microbiome of our gut and how many diseases that we learn are attached now to that. Well, it's the same thing with your soil. It's exactly like your poop, if you will. So it has a million bacteria, or lots of bacteria in there. So all of that is really important to the way plants grow.
So you don't think they're going to change it to where it's like, because right now, isn't it get 10 servings of breads and grains, and then work your way up and get then your fruits and vegetables and meats and all those things, you don't think they're going to rework the entire pyramid itself?
Well, no, I think they'll rework the entire pyramid. I go back to what we had when I was a kid. I don't know who taught my parents, but it was a perfect, healthy meal. We got, a pork chop, a potato, or some rice, a little bit. We got butter on those things. We got milk from the farm. We got a salad. You had to have some salad and some kind of another vegetable. And for dessert, unless it was on the weekend, you could have cookies and that on the weekend. But and during the week, you could have a piece of fruit if you were still hungry. So
yeah, that's exactly.
That was every meal.
Yeah. I remember growing up like that, eating at my grandparents' house, and that's exactly what it was. It was meat, potatoes, and it was small portions. It wasn't a lot of food. It was just a small portion of, meat, potato, salad, like you mentioned, green vegetable. And yeah, it was a piece of fruit at the end of the night if you were still hungry and wanted something sweet. It wasn't dessert, certainly. We definitely eat very differently now. And a lot of people no longer cook. Cooking is a thing of the past for many, many, many families. They're eating out all the time. And that'll certainly needs to change.
I think my patients cook 80% of the time, and I work with medical residents. So one time, because, I don't have time for breakfast, I always ask them, what's the one thing you can do to best help your patients? And they always say, listen to the patient. And I say, no. And they're like, look at their labs better, and no, it's taking care of yourself. Because if you had a bagel at 7 a.m. and it's 10 a.m., you may hear that patient, but you're not listening because your blood sugar has dropped down. You need to have a healthy breakfast. So we made shakes. It was funny. The male residents wanted strawberry. The female wanted chocolate. And then I said, okay, if you don't have time for this, how about this? I opened a pack of sake-eyed salmon and some almond crackers. Or if you don't have time for that, here's a banana and a handful of walnuts, So you don't have an excuse. You have no time for healthy eating because you don't have to have, 3 eggs and bacon and everything else to have a well-balanced meal.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We do live stream it every day. It's a 1-hour show. You can catch it. It is totally free. Just go to KimIversonShow.com. See you there.